You are staring at a screen. The message was delivered 3 days ago. No response. Just a void where a connection used to be. You check again. Nothing. The silence in your hand feels heavier than a stone. It is not just an annoyance. It is a physical sensation. A tightening in the chest. A drop in the stomach. A frantic, looping thought process that scans every memory, every word spoken, searching for the error code. What did I do wrong? Why did they leave? We call this ghosting. It has become the modern plague of human connection, a byproduct of a digital age that allows us to dispose of people with a swipe. But if you think this is just about bad manners or a lack of courtesy, you are missing the profound biological reality beneath the surface. Ghosting is not a social strategy. It is a neurological event. It is the collision of two nervous systems that have malfunctioned. To understand why they left, and more importantly, why it is destroying your peace of mind, we have to leave the realm of dating advice and enter the cold, hard architecture of the human brain. We need to talk about the vagus nerve, the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, and a survival mechanism known as Dorsal Vagal Shutdown. Let's begin with the person who vanished, the ghoster. Society tells you they are a narcissist. Your friends tell you they are a player. And while those labels might offer a temporary band-aid to your ego, they are often scientifically inaccurate. In many cases, the person who ghosted you is not operating from a place of calculated malice. They are operating from a place of biological collapse. We need to look at Polyvagal theory. Your autonomic nervous system has a hierarchy of responses to stress. When you feel safe and connected, you are in the ventral vagal state. This is the state of social engagement. You are calm. Your voice is melodic. You can make eye contact. This is where love happens. But when stress enters the equation, perhaps the relationship got too real, or you asked for a commitment they were not ready for. The brain shifts gears. First, it goes into the sympathetic state. This is fight or flight. Anxiety spikes. The heart races. They might argue or pull away slightly. But what happens when the stress becomes too much? What happens when their nervous system perceives the emotional demand as a threat to their very existence? They crash. They drop into the bottom of the hierarchy. This is the dorsal vagal state. This is the freeze response. Evolutionarily, this is the opossum playing dead. It is the reptile going still to avoid the predator. When a human being enters dorsal vagal shutdown, their system is flooded with endogenous opioids to numb the pain of impending death. They dissociate. They feel foggy, numb, and heavy. The idea of replying to your text message feels physically impossible. It is not that they won't reply. It is that their biology has pulled the emergency brake. They have gone offline. To you, it looks like arrogance. To them, it feels like paralysis. They are ghosting you because their nervous system has identified intimacy as a predator, and the only way to survive is to disappear. Now, does this excuse the behavior? Absolutely not. Understanding the biology is not a permission slip for emotional immaturity, but it does change the narrative. You are not being rejected by a superior being who has evaluated your worth and found it lacking. You are dealing with a nervous system that is so fragile, so ill-equipped for connection, that it had to shut down to survive a simple conversation. But what about you? Why does their silence feel like a physical wound? Why can you not just shrug it off and move on? This is where the neuroscience gets dark. When you are ghosted, your brain registers the event not as a social inconvenience, but as physical pain. We know this from fMRI studies. Social rejection activates the same neural pathways as breaking a bone or burning your skin. Specifically, the Anterior Cingulate Cortex lights up. This is the alarm bell of the brain. Evolutionarily, this makes perfect sense. For our ancestors, being excluded from the tribe meant death. You could not survive the winter alone. So, The brain evolved to treat social silence as a life or death emergency. When they stop responding, your amygdala, the fear center, hijacks your logic. It screams that you are unsafe. But there is another layer to this torture. It is called the Zeigarnik effect. The human brain hates open loops. It is designed to solve problems. If I play a melody and stop just before the final note, your brain will scream for resolution. It will replay that song over and over until it hears the end. Ghosting is the ultimate open loop, because there is no closure, no explanation, and no final goodbye. Your brain cannot file the memory away. It keeps it active in your working memory, spinning it around, looking for the missing piece of data that will close the file. This is why you stalk their social media. This is why you reread the texts. You are not crazy. You are a pattern recognition machine trying to solve an unsolvable equation. And then there is the dopamine. When someone pulls away, they inadvertently create a reward system known as intermittent reinforcement. This is the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. If you pull the lever and win every time, you get bored. But if you win only sometimes, and you never know when, your dopamine spikes through the roof. When they were replying, you got the hit. Now that they are silent, your dopamine levels drop, plunging you into a state of withdrawal. You are literally detoxing from the person. The craving you feel to reach out is not love. It is a neurochemical deficit. You are chasing the high of the response to regulate your own crashing biochemistry. So, we have a ghoster in a state of Dorsal Vagal Shutdown, numb, frozen, avoiding reality. And we have you, the ghosted, with an inflamed Anterior Cingulate Cortex, stuck in a dopamine withdrawal loop, desperate for closure. It is a tragedy of biological errors. So, how do we fix this? How do we hack the system and regain control? First, you must stop the self-blame immediately. You must understand that their shutdown is about their capacity, not your value. You cannot communicate with someone who is in a dorsal vagal state. You cannot reason with a nervous system that is playing dead. Sending more texts, demanding answers, or writing long paragraphs of feelings will only push them deeper into the freeze. You are banging on the door of an empty house. You must respect the silence, not for them, but for you. The protocol for recovery requires you to manually override your own limbic system. You are currently in a state of high alert. You need to signal safety to your own body. This starts with what I call the biological pivot. When the urge to check their status hits you, recognize it as a cortisol spike. Do not act on it. Action reinforces the loop. Instead, you must engage the body. High-intensity exercise is one of the few things that can burn off the excess adrenaline and reset the nervous system. You need to physically move the stress out of your tissue. Next, you must close the loop yourself. You are waiting for them to give you closure. They cannot give you what they do not have. You must become the architect of your own ending. Write the final narrative. Tell yourself, they were unable to meet the requirements of this level of connection. Their system collapsed. The experiment is over. Accept the data. The silence is the answer. The silence is the closure. You are waiting for them to give you closure. They cannot give you what they do not have. You must become the architect of your own ending. Write the final narrative. Tell yourself, they were unable to meet the requirements of this level of connection. Their system collapsed. The experiment is over. Accept the data. The silence is the answer. The silence is the closure. It is the loudest thing they could possibly say. It tells you that they lack the emotional infrastructure to build the house you want to live in. There is a concept in psychology called limbic friction. It is the strain required to overcome your initial emotional reaction. Right now, your friction is high. It is hard to let go. But every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you redirect your focus back to your own life, you are rewiring your brain. You are pruning the synaptic connections that are tethered to them. You are engaging in a process of synaptic pruning. Your brain is a garden. If you stop watering the weeds, if you stop feeding the memory of them with your attention, those neural pathways will eventually wither and die. The pain will fade, not because time heals all wounds, but because neurons that do not fire together no longer wire together. We must also address the concept of status. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, being ignored lowers your perceived status. It makes you feel small. The antidote to this is not to beg for their attention, which lowers your status further, but to elevate your own. This is the philosophy of quiet luxury applied to the soul. You do not chase, you do not beg, you do not negotiate your value. You invest your energy into your own expansion. When you shift your focus from "why don't they want me" to "what am I building for myself," you flip the dynamic. You move from a state of scarcity to a state of abundance. The person who ghosted you is likely stuck in a cycle of avoidance that will plague them for years. They will repeat this pattern with the next person and the next, until they do the heavy lifting of regulating their own nervous system. That is their burden to carry. Do not make it yours. Your task is to become Antifragile, to use this pain as data. You have learned that you have a capacity for deep connection, and you have learned to spot the signs of emotional unavailability. In the future, look for the ventral vagal cues early on. Does this person handle stress well? Can they communicate when things get difficult? Or do they shut down? Do they go silent? Real intimacy requires two nervous systems that can regulate each other. It requires co-regulation. If you are the only one doing the work, you are not in a relationship. You are in a caretaking role for a stranger's trauma. Let them go. Let them stay in the freeze. You have a life to live, and you cannot live it waiting for a ghost to come back to life. The phone is just plastic and glass. The silence is just a lack of data. You are the operator of the machine. Put the phone down. Look at the world around you. That is where the reality is. That is where your future is waiting. Do not let a malfunction in someone else's biology dictate the quality of your psychology. You are the architect of your own blueprint. Build it on solid ground, not on the shifting sands of someone else's silence. You are the architect of your own blueprint. Build it on solid ground, not on the shifting sands of someone else's silence. Class dismissed.